I always say that, and then I'm like, there are people who listen to this not in the morning. Hello, friends, and welcome to this episode of The Right Reasons. We're a little off-center today.
Well, we are an off-center. The words are off-center.
True.
My bad for steam cleaning the our backdrop today. I am checking really quickly
Last
make
week,
sure that
our sound, which we apologize for, our sound was super blown out last week, and we didn't know until we went to produce the podcast portion, and we listened to ourselves back, and it was like us yelling in your ears, and we felt really bad about it.
What did it sound like?
Yeah, I'm not doing that again. How do we sound?
Oh, I think we sound pretty good. Yeah, no, I think we're good to go.
All right, fabulous.
Whew.
So our apologies for the super blown out microphones. We got a brand new mixer.
It sounds like the parents or the teachers, like the adults in like Charlie Brown and Peanuts, like womp 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 womp.
Yeah, that kind of sounded like us.
Yeah.
So hold on one second.
So exciting seeing comments
hey,
right
friends.
here.
Hey, Jessica,
Hey,
Amanda, Heather. So excited to have everybody here with us. If you are just tuning in, please, at any point, whether you're here live or listening to this or watching this as a recording, hit that thumbs up button on the video. It helps YouTube know, hey, people actually are interacting with this content and they enjoy it, and then they show our video to other people, which is how new friends find us.
Exactly.
So thank you.
Did we acknowledge we're going live earlier than usual?
No.
We're live earlier than usual. You may have noticed it is not 11 o'clock Eastern. It is 9:50 in the morning. We have some stuff happening later in the day, and our schedules didn't permit for things.
Yeah, but we still wanted to be able to go live the morning after. So we just pushed it back a little bit. So for those of you on the West Coast, we're sorry. We know it's really early.
Well, I still haven't gotten used to the Wednesday live thing. Like
I keep thinking it's Tuesday.
It's selfish, personally. I think it's a little selfish of ABC to take up by Monday and Tuesday nights and push this back to when. It's 4 hours a week, and then also we have to push this back, which screws whatever. It's the whole thing.
So thank you for being here with us, whether you are here live with us earlier or catching the recording or listening to the podcast. We are so grateful for you. We've been getting the best feedback from you guys. And what I find really neat is that even those of you who don't agree with some of the things that we've been saying, we've been getting into awesome conversation. And that's all we're doing. We're not here to be like, our opinion is the only opinion that's accurate. So yeah, Tree, we're just starting. Thank you so much for all of your feedback, be it agree or disagree or anywhere in between.
Yeah.
Hey, Lucy.
Well, I think that's something that our culture doesn't do very often, especially on the internet, is having open discussion where one person can help teach somebody something else or share information that the other person doesn't know, and that can help shift the other person's perception or opinion or thought process. Like, we're human beings. We take in new information, we absorb it, and we learn from it, and we move forward from there. And so having healthy discussion, be it, personal opinions clashing or different thought processes or takes on the show, the fact that we can have a healthy conversation about it is not something you see on the internet very often.
And that's truly what we want.
Yeah, go to the dumpster fire, that's Twitter. That's constantly, it's just anger all the time, and frustration, and spite, and vengeance. It's so toxic. But being able to hang out in the comment section with you all and have healthy conversation is so refreshing, and I'm thankful for it.
It really is.
Yeah.
So I think that's a perfect, let's get started.
Yeah.
I'm still getting used to recapping 4 hours of content. It is just a lot. And I feel very grateful that this is our first Paradise recap season, because I think that, for those of you, if you haven't heard our show before, I've been watching The Bachelor since the first season. I missed a few Bachelor seasons, like in the weird beginning-ish of the show. But I've seen everything, all the Paradises, everything. And I'm grateful that this is the Paradise that we're recapping first, because a lot of other seasons, it felt a bit more petty, and I feel it seems as though this season is giving us a lot to talk about. And our concern, I know for both of us, was we hoped after coming off of Hannah's season, the Paradise was going to give us enough content to actually have something like juicy to discuss and not just like, well, he said that she said that
Quality
she said
content.
this.
Yeah.
And this season has definitely given us that. And so I'm super stoked on it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think that, well, I mean, literally what you just said, like, there were a lot of fears around the quality of the season and actual things to talk about, and, yeah, Lucy, we're happy you're here, too. So, here's what I still struggle with. It's episode 3 of Right Reasons, Bachelor in Paradise recap, but it's episodes 5 and 6 that we're recapping.
Yeah,
It's so confusing.
It's easier for my brain to go by week.
Yeah. So week 3.
So it's week 3, episode 1 and 2 is how I've been like.
It's
doing it in my head.
603 A and B. I think is how they classify it on our DVR. Whatever. So we start right after the fight. I forgot about already. I forgot.
Okay, first of all, this is such a double standard. They made such a big deal over we have a 0 tolerance policy for physical violence. There have been other physical altercations on the show where the people have not gone home.
Think about last Bachelor in Paradise. Technically, by the standards of the show, if they are what they claim they are, then Grocery Store Joe, he's going home because he physically engaged that douchebag Leo.
Yes, also, how about Luke P body slamming Luke S?
I understand the gray area for that because technically they were playing a contact sport. I still think that he did it completely out of bounds. It was totally not part of what was going on. I do understand the one gray area there. However, if they had a 0 tolerance policy, engaging in any kind of physical competition is sort of a gray. I don't know.
Whatever. The Grocery Store Joe thing, though, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Even though, again, I understood more of what he was doing last season because Leo's a tool.
Yeah.
In this, it was more of just, it was stupid. Okay, so we come right back in. Jordan's trying to take down the piñata, and Kristian gets incredibly aggressive very quickly.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, I understand Kristian being frustrated.
Yeah.
I understand Kristian being like, what the fuck are you doing, Jordan? Like, what? You have nothing to do with this. Don't touch my shit.
Yeah.
What I don't understand and don't have compassion or empathy for is how fast he resorted to being physically aggressive.
Yep. I wrote down Jordan did something dumb and Kristian overreacted. That's the beginning of this whole thing.
No, for sure.
So, and here's what's really interesting to me is that if you look back to the previous episode before this one, episode 4, I guess you'd say, is
week 2.
Week 2, episode 4. I can't keep it all together. When Kristian is trying to front on Clay and Nicole, Clay just lays there the entire time, and he's like, "I don't need to get up and make this physical." Had Kristian played the same thing, where he just laid there and watched Jordan take his piñata down and been like, "Dude, that's a douchebag thing to do." Like, okay, if you want to be an asshole, he could have made that look way better for him.
He would have come across as the
100%. 100%. I'd be like, wow, man, Kristian really learned some self-control in between that one thing and the other thing. But he didn't. So here's what I find really interesting. Kristian seems to kind of shove and kick at Jordan all of a sudden, and that's where things get out of control really quickly, because at that point they're kind of jostling and shoving each other, the arm, don't do it. They don't really want to physically engage. They're shouldering each other. But it's like in hockey when you can check people not on the numbers, it can hit their shoulders, but you can't hit them in the chest. And then Kristian flails a little at Jordan, and Jordan, you see him go straight to fight or flight, and he picks fight out of flight and throws Kristian off of the palapa, which I was genuinely surprised by.
Were you going to say impressed? And you stopped yourself because you, overall not impressed, but, actually impressed at the fact that he threw him off?
I just find it very interesting. It's an interesting choice of physical interaction. That's what I think it is. I don't encourage it. I don't condone it. I think that it is a really, really interesting way of responding to that situation. And, I find this really interesting, too, that you brought that up, because I found the way the guys on the beach responded to this also very interesting, is that there's this weird testosterone part of your brain where I'm like, yeah, fight. But at the same time, I also think that what they're doing is stupid, and I don't really like either of them. So I feel very impartial. Like if it was like like Derek and Blake squaring off, I'd be like, guys, whoa, not like, come on. But both Kristian and Jordan have shown to be incredibly antagonistic to each other.
So here's the thing, though. To me, this showed a lack of emotional capacity
100%.
In both of the guys.
Oh, yeah.
In my opinion, both as a human and as a therapist, somebody who resorts... Sorry, there's an ambulance going by.
New York City.
New York City. Anybody who resorts, whether it's male or female or anywhere in between, anyone who resorts to physical violence right away instead of saying, hey, dude, don't fucking touch my shit. Yeah. Or, like Mike says, I wrote down this quote from Mike. He says, if somebody does that to you, you just have to be chi about it.
I loved that. That was... But see, and there's the difference between someone who's confident in themselves in a way that, for all their bravado, Kristian and Jordan, I don't think that they are. And
no, absolutely not.
It shows because they have to demonstrate themselves physically, and that's the difference between Kristian and Clay right there, is that Kristian has to physically defend himself, whereas Clay's like, he knows that's not the point. And you see it with almost every other guy there. Like, Blake's not going to get in a fight, Derek's not going to do that. Like, all the guys that are on the beach aren't of that capacity, I think.
Well,
whereas...
Yeah.
You see Kristian and Jordan, they already had bad blood, and they antagonized it further.
It also plays into, like, the toxic masculinity
100%.
that we're trying to break in our culture, is that displaying... And Nicole, to somewhat of a degree, perpetuated this, yes. And then realizes what happened, and kind of this was a wake-up call for her, which I appreciated, and... we could talk about that in a second. So, yeah. Okay, let's just finish recapping this fight.
Jordan throws him off the palapa, but here's what's interesting. The producers pounce on Kristian, who is getting up and trying to continue the fight. Jordan's like, nope, what just happened? What did I just do? I think there was genuine surprise from Jordan around his
he was shocked that he threw him off. Like, it almost was an impulsive reaction.
Yeah.
And... Yeah. He was like, holy shit, I just physically engaged. I'm done. Like, producers are here. I'm out.
I think he was surprised, too. And I think he also knew exactly what the ramifications of his actions were, because he's immediately disengaged, whereas Kristian is threatening him. He is trying to charge at him across the beach. He gets tackled by a lifeguard, which was something else.
The lifeguard saved the day.
The lifeguard
took
him... Which,
by the way, have we ever seen the lifeguard on camera? I hadn't.
Here's what I'm actually legitimately impressed by in terms of a production sake. So the second the fight actually happens, like 30 people appear on the beach. So, because usually you just see the contestants, right? There's like 2 people walking on the sand, or there's like 5 people over here, or like everyone's over there. There's no one in sight. You never see like an employee, or you barely see a camera person in a reflection, but very, very rarely. But all of a sudden, there's like 30 people. They just show right up on the beach. They're all there, and I thought it was fast, too.
Yeah. So Kristian is essentially, like, he can't stop. He's continuing to try to break free from the producers. And finally, you know, they get them separated, and Onyeka comes over to talk to Nicole, which is interesting because they had super weird interactions on Colton season. So, like, clearly
that's odd.
That's past, and we didn't get to see that kind of come to a resolution. And then Tayshia comes to check on Nicole, and then in the moment, Nicole talks about how she said before that she wanted someone to fight for her, but that this isn't what she meant. And this, to me, is an important moment, I think, for all of us to remember that our words have a lot of power. And so when we say things like, fight for me, to someone who their default is perhaps physical violence, that means physically fight for me. So it's important to say exactly what we mean. And I think that these general statements of, like, fight for me, that, like, how?
Yeah, I think Nicole, in this moment, realized that egging guys on who have a tendency to show aggression over being assertive is not a great move. Yeah. I think this was a kind of a wake-up call for her a little bit.
Oh, like, yeah.
You know, we see her in the previous episode, like, really enjoying all the attention and kind of riling the guys up against each other because it's fun for her. And then all of a sudden, it flashes out of control, and I think that she sort of came down a little bit from her cloud, like, maybe I did have a small part to play in this.
Yeah.
I think it was really interesting. So the guys, it's like, this looks like any group of people after a fist fight breaks out. All the guys are like, post-fight discussion. What do you think happened here? What about this? Like, oh man, you shouldn't have done that. And all the girls are like, can you believe they did that? I cannot believe.
So long story short, the whole cast is like, are we going to have the rose ceremony? Are they going to halt production? What's going to happen? They separate the two of them.
Yep.
And one thing that I noticed...
Oh, yeah, the blurred out face?
Yeah, so after we cut to commercial and come back, when we see the producers and Jordan talking up in the palapa, there is a woman in the shot who's completely blurred out. She's wearing a dress. I'm wondering if this is the staff therapist. Because her face, so she's the only production/medical staff that her face is not shown.
Mm-hmm.
And she was not in the shot with Kristian. So I don't know if anybody else caught that, but if you know who that is, I'm curious. I have a feeling it's the therapist to check in on their mental stability.
Yeah, when you caught that, we went backwards, and I was like, and all of a sudden, like, she's barely there, just for a second, a couple frames, she's in the corner.
Yep.
So again, I find the way that Jordan and Kristian are both treated right now really interesting, because Jordan's got 3 producers and a mystery woman there, whereas Kristian's got like
a medical team, security. Yeah.
Like the lifeguard who tackled him is there. Lifeguard is like buff too, and like there's a lot more people surrounding him, showing that I think that he is clearly more of a threat to people's safety than Jordan.
Lifeguard has to be able to like carry Clay in from the water. Yeah. So, like, they need to get a pretty strong lifeguard for Paradise.
Do you think that, like, they cast a lifeguard specifically? Like, so you need to be able to lift somebody who's, like, 290 pounds of, like, muscle.
I would think that the cast of Paradise is typically more in shape than, like, the typical person who goes to stay at that resort.
I would agree.
I think they have to...
Yeah. So, long story short, production's like, hey guys, zero tolerance policy, time to go home.
Which is apparently a new zero tolerance policy.
Well, so there's something that I want to address really quickly in the comment section here that people are suggesting. Taylor's talking about how Mike Fleiss, is the creator of the show, is currently being investigated for possibly being domestically abusive. We haven't found out a lot about that. We haven't looked into it super heavily, but it would not surprise me if the show is preemptively covering their ass a little bit to be like, no, we do not condone these things, regardless of what this person does. Because in the past, there have been other physical altercations and nothing's happened. So who's to say? Either way, Jordan and Kristian go home. And honestly, I don't think the show is any lesser for it.
I mean, to me, it was a positive. I thought that it was a good wake-up call for Nicole. And what this does is she essentially says that watching Clay says to Nicole that watching her go on the dates has made him realize how much he actually really likes her, which is a common theme in Paradise.
Yep.
And I think in real life as well, if you watch somebody else get pursued by someone and you're feeling, not just feelings of like jealousy in terms of like, oh, they're with it, but like actually like a longing to be with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I found this really interesting too. When Clay and Nicole talk, she talks about wishing she had seen him in action, but then also realizing that she is happy he didn't get involved because he would be going home.
Yeah.
And so even that, like, that bothered me a little bit. It's like she didn't get fully that telling guys you're interested in them being physically violent may not lead to good things for anyone involved. So I think that she's aware of what her role in this was, and she likes someone who can be physically capable, but doesn't act on it. I think that she's finding her line of attraction there with Clay.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that reminds me of, Kristen Bell and Dax Shepard have talked a lot about this before, too. Like,
good point.
There was a time when they were first dating that he actually got out of the car and, beat the crap out of somebody. And it was a moment where she talks about how it was so attractive to her, and yet she was like, I can't be with somebody who does this, so, like, you cannot do that ever again unless, like, our lives are being threatened.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting, I think it's important to acknowledge that we all have this part in ourselves that we do want to feel protected, whether we're male or female or, anywhere in between those two. And it's nice to know that your partner has the capacity to do that, but we also typically don't want to be with somebody who's just violent for violence sake.
Yep.
And who gets that riled up and violent over a fucking piñata. Now, Jordan was in the wrong. I want to acknowledge that. 100% Jordan was in the wrong. But he also stopped being super aggressive towards Kristian when he realized what was going on. And Kristian did not. Totally.
I think it's part of our humanity, I think, to try to forget that we're animals. We're mammals. We still have these weird tendencies to do things, and we want to search out for the strongest one of us to be protected. It's a weird pack animal thing that we do still.
It's like Lion King.
It's exactly like Lion King.
So then we cut to commercial.
Before commercial, Clay and Nicole start making out, and I wrote down, adrenaline is a hell of an aphrodisiac.
Oh, yeah,
because it is. Okay,
for sure.
Sorry, I just wanted to interject that real quick. Also, she fishes for compliments in her dress right afterwards. She's like, it's too tight. And Clay's like, no, it's not. But we agree it's too tight.
Although we're not here to comment on anyone's physical
I'm
appearance.
agreeing with her thing. She was fishing for compliments, though, but I agree with her assessment of her dress.
And, it's okay to fish for compliments. It's not a bad thing.
Right.
So.
Onyeka?
Yeah.
So... She seems to enjoy having control.
She says, I have the power. Yay, woo me. She enjoys it.
I was trying to lean into it.
She highly enjoys having the control. She, So here's my thing with Onyeka. I forget that she's as young as she is.
How old is she?
I think she's 25.
Okay.
To me, she appears older, but acts young. And there's something about her. She expresses when she's feeling insecure. She expresses it as domineering and sarcastic humor. And that part of her comes off very mean girly and rude and kind of callous and not likable. And yet, right after that, we see her basically break down, being nobody here is interested in me. And so I feel genuine empathy for her actual feelings.
Yes.
And her feelings of being, she didn't find anybody there. And that sucks, to come into something where you see people all around you pairing off, and you have, two guys after Hannah, and all these people are going on multiple dates, and she just hasn't had that at all.
Yeah.
I feel empathy for that. What I don't feel empathy for is how she takes those feelings, those vulnerable feelings, and then masks them and behaves in a way that is attention-seeking and aggressive and rude. That's what I don't like. I do respect her move of leaving the show.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a good choice for her. However, I think she did it because she knew she wasn't going to get a rose. She was handing out the rose, but because she was over it.
Yeah, so would you explain for everybody what negative sentiment override is? Because I think that she hasn't.
Really?
Well, that's the thing, is that she talks about how she hasn't made a connection, she hasn't, found anyone there in paradise. But granted, we're only seeing what the producers show us, what the editors show us. However, I've never seen her really genuinely making moves for anybody, or even having conversation that isn't about someone else, or isn't a criticism of someone else, or I don't see her playing the game. When we see the shots of the bar and everyone's talking, she's talking to other women, or we get a side thing of her talking shit about someone else. I don't see her doing anything to change her situation, and yet is constantly negative about her situation. So that's why I feel there's a negative sentiment override, because it's kind of, that's how I felt like she was the last time I saw her in Colton's season, right? Where she was just kind of negative the whole time about everything.
So that's interesting. I don't think that it's negative sentiment override because there needs to be like another person involved in that context. However, I do think that she is just pessimistic.
Maybe that's the word I wanted to use instead.
And I think that that pessimism comes from an insecurity internally. I would love to talk to her. I feel like there are a lot more layers to her. We're all
100%.
complex people, and we've seen a very like one-note thing until she actually showed emotion and decided to leave. And I was like, that's the Onyeka I want to see more of. And it looks like the comments agree, is like, you know, she wasn't manipulating anybody. However, like,
negative.
It's just very negative.
Like, everyone's having, like, hey, you're on a beach. You're supposed to be dating a bunch of people and hanging out. And she's like, nah, it's fine. I don't know. It's just constantly negative about something that even Cam, who was trying to talk to her, apparently they had like a friend agreement for the rose thing.
That was gross.
It was a super weird conversation. I didn't like it. At least he is aware that there's supposed to be like a good time happening, and he's like, it didn't work out for me because of this, whereas she's kind of overtly, I don't know, negative towards the whole thing. So there's just sort of miscellaneous conversation. Dylan smitten with Hannah. Sydney talked smack about her for a while.
So I do want to acknowledge one of the comments on here. So Maria says it ties in with the woo me. She seems like she wants to be chased. So I think that there's a difference between wanting to feel pursued and then wanting to feel chased and like playing a game. And I think that all of us can acknowledge that we want to feel pursued and wanted.
Yeah.
We don't want to feel as though we are the only ones doing the pursuing, because it feels very one-sided. It's like going in for a kiss and you go 99% of the way and they're like, well, I guess I can move forward like a half an inch. That's fine. We want to feel like we're being met with the other person that we're interested in. Whereas like the chasing game thing, I think that's more of like, I'm going here, follow me, I'm going here. Like the zigzag of things and kind of leading somebody on and dragging them along for the ride.
Yeah.
But I think that lack of pursuing led to her feeling extra insecure on top of her already feeling insecure.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Right, like a really comfortable, confident person doesn't need to have their shtick be a blowhorn. Or, like,
oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
You know, I had forgotten about that, and it was nice.
Yeah.
I forgot about the air horn.
And I agree. Amanda in the comments says, she says, I'm feeling a lot of manipulation among the girls this season, and I'm not appreciating it. I agree with you, Amanda.
It's odd. It gets worse, too, as the rest of the recap will go on. It's very interesting.
Yeah, not all of them, but the ones that are doing it are like, it's not cool.
I would like to know if Sydney has had a lot of stuff that she's been filmed doing not be shown to us, because almost every time we see her, she is criticizing someone else, and it's weird, right? Like, I don't know why we're always getting, either she's a nightmare, which I don't believe, but every time we see her, she's saying something negative about somebody else on the show. So I find that odd.
And that could be the editing.
And it may be the editing.
Yeah,
so,
we don't know.
Because we see her taking time out of her day to talk smack about Hannah, because at this point, we're getting back into the Blake, Dylan, Hannah triangle.
I have something to say about this.
By all means. The microphone is yours.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so this may be an unpopular opinion. I just want to state that at the front, because if any of you are like, I disagree, that's fine.
Is this a hot take?
I don't know if you'd consider it a hot take. You can decide. Okay, so I wrote this down because I knew that by the time we got through the next 2 hours and 40 minutes of content that I wouldn't have the same brain stream. So I want to read what I wrote down. Everyone else is so uncomfortable with Hannah's indecision that they're asking her to make a decision. Meaning everybody is saying Hannah needs to decide between Dylan and Blake. This is not okay for her to do. It's making it so like if I'm uncomfortable, I'm telling Kyle, do this because your choices are making me uncomfortable, even if Kyle was totally comfortable with it. So that's the first thing. There's no reason why she needs to make a decision right now. I said, is that the rule of paradise? That you, like, can't be interested in two people and go a couple weeks seeing both people. So go after who you want, of course, but there's nothing wrong with Hannah dating both guys. It's no different than the Bachelor or Bachelorette dating all of the women and then not making their decision until the final episode. Just because Dylan did not sleep with another girl from Bachelor Nation that we know of does not mean that Hannah owes him anything. She has been acknowledging over and over again that Dylan is doing so much for her and that he's been incredibly patient. And she says that she feels bad. And then, so here, okay, this is my overall problem with the narrative. The narrative of this is everyone else feels uncomfortable. So they want Hannah to make a choice so that they're not uncomfortable anymore. And they're saying that the best person for her is the one who is nicest or that didn't sleep with somebody else. And we haven't seen anybody just ask Hannah, who do you like more? Who do you like? What do you want? And so the assumption is that if she picks Blake, that she did something wrong. Everybody keeps saying, I hope she makes the right choice. I hope she makes the right choice. The right choice is who she wants to be with, whether that is Blake or Dylan. Why the fuck do we care if she's happy? So that's my thing. Tayshia even says in the moment that nobody should be played like that, as if Hannah is playing people. Hannah has been 100% honest with both of them. Even when Wills kissed her, she went back and told Dylan immediately, Wills just kissed me. She has not deceived anybody, at least from what we've seen. So I don't like this idea and this narrative overarching thing that Hannah has to make a decision because other people are uncomfortable and other people know what is right for her. I think that she gets to do whatever she wants as long as she is honest, which she is doing. And that's my thing.
That's good. So here's my thing to jump on board with that.
Do you agree with me?
I do.
Because we didn't talk about this as, like, I didn't want to talk about it before we were live.
So here's what I think the key is here, is that this is why I think the people on the beach are like, what are you doing? Dylan is the guy. Like, why are you screwing around with Blake? Here's what I think it is. And this is why I think that the people on the beach specifically are struggling and why, for us, it's easier to see what's going on for her, where she's trying to make up her mind.
I mean, of course it's easier for us to see than
okay, obviously it's us, because we see, like, a narrative, and like, life doesn't have a narrative, and like, whatever, they're doing their thing. But here's what Dylan is offering Hannah a rarity among the Bachelor world, especially on Paradise. Do you know what that is? Dylan is offering commitment. Dylan is ready to be in a committed relationship with Hannah. That, in Paradise specifically, is rarer than gold. Think about it. Think about what we've seen so far. Everybody's like, yeah, these people they're together, but like we don't know who's coming yet. We don't know about this. We don't know about that. Everything's so up in the air. Even the other people who are in like relatively established connections, like think about at this point, like what like Chris and Katie are hanging out. There are a bunch of people at this point in the show that have been hanging out almost the whole time, and yet are still a little like, well, maybe we'll see, and like we're just getting to know each other and this and that. Dylan's like committed, and I think that is what the people who are looking, because Blake's not offering commitment in the way that they trust, because everyone thinks that Blake is flighty and like, you know,
which
a
is
fuckboy, which is whatever. But I think that that's the confusion among the cast on the beach. They're like, well, we're all here to find a relationship, and Dylan is offering you that, so why don't you offer exactly what we're all here for? Without taking time to consider that Hannah genuinely sees an option with both Dylan and Blake, and they're both offering the same thing. Dylan is being more forward about it and more open about it, whereas Blake clearly, and I don't blame him, wants to get the fuck away from everybody else and just spend time with Hannah. but everybody else is constantly dragging him down, which is why he wants to get away from them. And so I think that's the issue, is that Dylan's offering the end result of the show. Hannah's not ready to agree for the end result at the time.
Because who the fuck would be ready to commit to that after knowing somebody for like 4 days?
I agree with you, but I think that's why the people on the show are like, Hannah is leading Dylan on. Maybe Hannah hasn't figured out what she wants yet.
You're like, yes, it's been 8 days.
Right.
So, this
this is a whole thing.
So in the comments, Lucy, I agree. So I just want to read these so that podcast listeners, you're not like, what are you talking about? Lucy in the comments says, Hannah's not expressing what she wants either. Her people-pleasing tendencies are on full display. She always asks other girls' opinions and doesn't voice hers.
Yep.
So I agree with that, Lucy. I think, though, what we're all not saying is that Hannah doesn't know what she wants.
Yep.
And that's the thing, is she's asking because she's trying to figure it out.
Yep.
And
she's also not the most communicative person.
And for someone who has people-pleasing tendencies and hasn't been, like, the most communicative, I think she's doing a damn good job saying, I still need to figure this out. I need time. I need to figure it out. Sydney makes a comment.
Especially after being put on such a pedestal, too.
I know, I agree. Sydney makes a comment. She says, be an adult and make a decision, Hannah. Okay.
So,
Sydney, if you ever hear this,
I'm
not criticizing you as a human. I'm criticizing this comment. She is being an adult in the sense that she is not making an impulsive decision. She is trying to take her time and feel out both relationships, which in the long run is way healthier than diving into something, shoving the other person aside. Do you know what that leads to? That leads to, like, having FOMO in your relationship and then cheating. Because you're like, well, I wonder what would have happened with Blake. Or I wonder what would have happened with Dylan.
Yep.
And isn't that what Paradise is for? To explore all of these different relationships? And she's being honest. So, yeah, I wish that they would I agree with Jessica, I wish that they would show more of Hannah and Dylan actually getting to know each other. I wish we could have seen more of Blake and Hannah having conversations that wasn't just everybody else giving negative criticisms of Blake. Like, okay, cool, he slept with a lot of people. Who cares? Like, let's move on and hear how they're actually together. Anyway, FOMO is the fear of missing out.
It's an acronym.
And
well said. So
sorry, this just really pisses me off.
Here's also why I think people on the beach are so heavy into Dylan and not Blake.
Because he's recent?
No. One.
Well, he's from Hannah City.
I mean, that can be one reason. That's not what my reason is here. Blake is he's a deeply emotional person, but he does something where he is very cheerful a lot of the time. Dylan suffers openly when Blake takes Hannah anywhere. He kind of Eeyores. He talks about how sad he is, how hard it is seeing someone else. And yes, all of those things are true, but he definitely kind of sad sacks it, whereas Blake is a little less
he tries to put on a face.
He does, which, whatever. I'm not here to comment whether or not that's a healthy life choice, but I'm saying that's probably
you are
why.
Here to comment whether or not that's a healthy life choice.
I don't think it's the greatest thing to do the time.
Feel your feelings.
Feel your feelings. Blake and his feelings, they need to have a little conversation, I think. Anyway, so the thing that makes me laugh is that, we get a cut of how deep Dylan is in for Hannah, and then Blake takes Hannah away, and they start dancing on the beach. I wrote down, again, who cares if it's a move? It works. Don't criticize Blake's dancing. It's actually a little played out. If I was him, I'd watch that and be like, maybe I'm going to stop dancing with girls for a while. Maybe dance just with yourself, Blake. Maybe get in touch with that guy and take him dancing on the beach.
Yeah. So we get to the rose ceremony, and Will says, "What a fucking night, dude." It's a pretty intense night, right?
What
like they have
night.
a lot of drama. So Demi gives her rose to Derek, Katie gives her rose to Chris, Nicole gives her rose to Clay, Kaylin gives her rose to Dean, Tasha gives her rose to JPJ, Sydney gives her rose to Mike, and I was very happy about this just because I wanted Mike to stay longer.
Yep.
Not that we had seen a great connection between them, but I was
Still
like,
don't.
cool, Mike's staying.
Get it.
And then Hannah comes up to give out her rose, and we cut to a commercial. We come back, and Hannah gives a rose to Dylan. And both Mike and Kristina smile so big about this that it definitely gave me some empathy for Blake. And this is something, so...
Oh, no, Onyeka sent herself home for this.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Mike is so careful with his words. He says Blake portrayed himself to be a player. So almost everybody else is saying, like, Blake is a fuckboy or Blake is a player. Mike is saying Blake portrayed himself to be. And I love how careful he is with his words. So Kristina gets up to give her rose. So at this point, the 4 guys without roses are Wills, Cam, Kevin, and Blake.
Yep.
And she gives her rose to Blake.
What?
Which is her first of many manipulative moves in this 2-episode arc.
Yeah, real interesting choice, followed up by... So he goes up there and she says, you haven't had a good time here. Everyone deserves love, and, he deserves it too, and he deserves his chance to find love. And... Which
is then we find out bullshit.
Well, let's find that out
Sorry.
later. God. Following chronologically in the recap. Everyone's upset, and everyone kind of gets all whatever. Cam and Kevin are just sour grapes in the car. They're like, meh, we're upset because of obvious things that we didn't, whatever.
Kevin says he's probably had sex with everybody on the beach. Yeah, okay, Kevin, nobody liked you. It's fine. Just go home.
Wow. Maybe Kevin wishes that he had sex with Blake on the beach.
Look, the reason why I get that way is that there's no personal responsibility, and somebody who just attacks somebody else because they're sad. Again, it's like, feel your own feelings. Feel your own feelings.
Yeah, it was interesting. I see Shirley talk about how it's a production move. I honestly don't think so, based on what Kristina says afterwards. So then we get a cut of Kristina saying that she did it so Blake can find love, but then she's like, also, he has to choose he picked his own personal hell. He could have not picked my rose, but now he chooses to stay, and he's not going to have a good time.
Yeah, she says now he gets to live in his own personal hell.
Says that she wants him to find love, both to his face and then also to the camera separately, but then acknowledges that she's also aware that he's picking something that she thinks is going to be a suffering for him.
And that he has to then watch Hannah and Dylan be in a relationship.
Something tells me, based on what we know about Blake, that he will be upset for a while, but it's really not going to be that bad for him.
This was such a calculated thing.
This is a pretty shitty thing to do.
All I thought to myself was, wow, I, first of all, could not be friends with her because I would constantly be worried about what she'd do if she got mad at me. And secondly, I would not want to be on her bad side. I don't want to be on any side, because if somebody is capable of doing that, no, thank you.
So we cut to a commercial and come back to find out that Dylan hasn't seen The Karate Kid, which is the first of 2 things of cultural awareness that this cast does not have. That one thing comes up later, but
can everybody in the comments?
Who's seen The Karate Kid? Who has seen
the original Karate Kid?
Oh, thank you for saying that. Do not talk about the Jaden Smith trash can that is the remake of The Karate Kid.
We're not here to talk about movies.
We just started talking about movies for a second. So, if you've seen the original Karate Kid, let us know. If you haven't seen the original Karate Kid, go see it, and you're welcome. And Ralph Macchio's amazing. So, we find out JPJ is apparently super articulate. His accent is very much gone at this point, which I find really odd. That his weird surfer thing seems
the
to
crush from
it
Finding
comes
Nemo
in and
goes
out.
away.
It's really strange. And we just get another super cut of him, and it brings me back to when they announced he's going to be on Paradise at the Mentel. Yeah, thank you, Heather. You get it. I don't understand what's going on with this cast.
Texas has seen it. Lucy's seen it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for seeing The Karate Kid. Anyway, so again, I think back to when John Paul Jones was brought out with Chris at the finale of Hannah's season, and it felt so
Was
forced.
that Men Tell All?
Was it Men Tell All?
Or the finale?
I think it was the finale, because, like, we're going to bring out John Paul Jones, and we're going to talk to you about, what's on Paradise and eat chicken nuggets. Remember that?
I can't remember if that was Men Tell All or anyway, it doesn't matter. I can't remember.
Either way, I wish we had gotten to see more of what we're seeing now, because he's fairly interesting, very articulate, and seemingly very intelligent. And that's not something that was shown at all. He was shown as like a goofball, like, side character of, like, look how crazy he is.
Also found out that he is a theater kid growing up, which, as a theater kid myself and someone who loves musical theater, I was like, well, of course he memorized this sonnet for her. Like, that. Anyway, he's awesome. I wish that we had seen more. And at this point, everyone is really, like, chill, which means that shit's about to go down.
Right. Blake seems to be very understanding of Hannah's choice. He seems sad about it, but he's not like, well, I'm going to go get her back now. He's kind of hands-off of the Hannah Dillon situation, which I appreciate his maturity around that. He's like, I got it. Let's move on. Yeah,
so although he is a little down, so Demi says the ghost of Blake is wandering the beach. Which was actually like her one-liners are funny.
Yeah.
And Caitlin from Colton season arrives in Paradise.
Yep.
And Katie says, I'm excited to have a girlfriend here, but this is a shitty time for anyone to come down.
Yep.
Yep. Caitlin, we did not get to see a lot of on Colton season, and she turns out throughout the course of this episode, I just start to like her more and more and more and more and more throughout the 2 episodes.
Yeah.
So, Dean fucks with Caitlin for like a half a second and says that he's going on a date with her, and he's not. I actually appreciate this with Dean and Caitlin. I think that Caitlin, we could talk about this more, I think, next week, because we're going to get more of them together. But I like that he is kind of testing how she reacts to things like that, because she is defaulting to, I knew his true colors would come out at some point. She's, like, waiting for him to disappoint her.
Mm-hmm.
And so I appreciate him kind of testing that. And that's his personality. So, like, if it's going to work, then she needs to see that. And I appreciate him being himself.
Like, lighthearted and playful rather than, like, so weirdly serious.
Yeah. So Caitlin asks Blake out on the date. And we cut to an ITM. And Blake says that they did meet at Stagecoach, but that nothing happened.
Blake laughs, we laughed, cut to commercial. It was a great moment where he's like, we met at Stagecoach, nothing happened.
Yeah. And then Dylan says, I'd be very surprised if Blake comes clean and tells Caitlin all the drama that's been surrounding him this season.
Well, guess what, motherfucker? That's what he does.
Yes,
Stupid.
he does.
Okay, first of all, Dylan, if you come out as the victor in this situation if the girl you're into is picked between 2 guys, and she picks you, you know what you don't do? You don't get in the mud.
Yeah, like, you're done.
Go and make out with your model girlfriend now. Don't worry about Blake. Blake's going to be fine. Don't be threatened by him still. It's so weird that he took time out to say that.
Yep. So we cut to commercial, we come back, and of course, it's a freaking awkward tantric yoga date. And... yeah, so Blake actually tells Caitlin everything.
It's great.
And the way that he does it, you can tell that he's a bit nervous, but he communicates it pretty well through the nerves.
Yep.
And she says, yeah, that's fine. I mean, everybody goes through stuff. And then she even says, like, everybody makes mistakes. But then she's like, I mean, mistake sounds like bad and negative.
Yeah.
And it's not like that's what happened. And he goes, then it cuts to him in an ITM, and he says, I didn't kill anybody, and I didn't cheat. I'm ready to forgive myself.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes! Because that's what we've been saying this whole time, is that, yes, could things have been handled differently? Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But he did not do something so horrendous based on what we know, that it required this level of guilt and shame and punishment. And it was so fucking refreshing to see Caitlin hear all the details and her be like, oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it was refreshing for her to kind of almost comfort him around that. She was like, that's the point. Like, you date around, people get upset around it. It's like, We all go through this. This is part of like our.
Yes.
She's very aware that follies of dating is part of normal life anyway. And
Follies of dating.
Yeah, follies of dating.
What's
and
that?
Like the ridiculous
like the
thing. Yeah, like follies. Like no, what's that?
Like the show Follies.
No, like follies, like misadventures of dating.
Oh, okay.
Like what's Follies the show?
And we'll talk later.
Okay. Anyway, but she's aware of like the follies of dating. Like things happen. Like you break up in weird ways. And then that's also part of life in normal life, but then also you're on a show and part of a franchise where that's hyper, like, extra.
Right.
It's so much more. And so I really appreciated that from her. And we got a quick cut of Clay, Dean, and Mike all talking about how they hope Blake has a better time, how he can move forward. And it was so refreshing to see a group of people at the beach showing support for someone who's been a center of a tense situation. And not trash talking. It was so refreshing to see the guys just being like, well, here's where we're at. I hope things go better now. Like, this is a good move. We're all heading in a positive direction. And I really, really appreciated that.
So then Hannah and Dylan end up going on a date. Dylan gets a date card.
Yeah.
And
Blake is sad.
Blake is sad. They go on a date. It's pretty much exactly what we've seen of them.
Yeah.
Like nothing amazing
they just
comes out of it.
They smile a lot. Dylan says a bunch of really emotional things, and she's like, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
we cut back from commercial with Chris and Blake talking about the date, and Chris asks how Blake is, seeing Hannah go off on the date.
Yeah.
And Blake this is so cool though, he admits that it sucked seeing her go off with Dylan, in that he's aware that she picked him at the same time. So he's admitting that he's sad, and that it's rough to see him go off with her, but he's also acknowledging that that's her choice, and he's not part of it. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a really great... It again shows some of the older guys in the show, the difference between 25 and 32 is drastic for a lot of people, and you see someone like Chris or Derek weighing in this much more emotional capacity, and it's giving some of the younger contestants the space to open up and share how they feel in a different way than usually is happening. And I really like this part of the show. I wish that they would keep more people over the age of 30 involved, because there's a level of emotional maturity that really comes through.
Yeah, yes. And it also speaks to, I truly wish that we taught emotional intelligence from a younger age, because yes, of course, we mature as we get older. Obviously, we go through things and our capacity expands, and like, physiologically and biologically, our frontal lobe of our brain is not fully developed until we're 25, 26 years old. So, a lot happens. And if we were to teach emotional intelligence to people from a younger age, then we could have more of these discussions at a younger age.
I just want to address something in the comments real quick, as Pious Athena is dropping in the comments. I don't agree with what you're saying. If you go around as a lady having casual sex, don't expect to be respected, because males will happily bed you. I'm sorry, but I don't agree with that, because it somehow makes women less valuable than men in this way. There's mutual respect on both sides. When people are single, they can do whatever they like to do. And if they're both on the same page about that, like Caitlin and Blake were, then there's mutual respect involved there. Mm-hmm. And if someone chooses to go sleep with a lot of people, that's their choice, and they're a human being of the utmost integrity until proven otherwise, just like anyone else is. You can have sex with one person your entire life and be a piece of shit person. You can sleep with 1 million people and be a piece of shit person. That doesn't matter.
And you can sleep with one person and be a wonderful person, and you can sleep with 1 million people and be a wonderful person.
Yeah, because human beings are human beings. Who we are internally defines us. Our actions, we make mistakes and people do their own thing, but like, just because a lot of people... Why is Caitlin so upset about being disrespected? That is her thing. That is not anyone else's thing. If you think Caitlin's the only person who has slept with other people within Bachelor franchise, I don't know, because a lot of people have, and that's her own stuff. She's insecure. That's what's happening.
Here's the thing. I think that all of us feel respect differently.
Yeah.
Different things make us feel respected or feel disrespected.
Yeah.
Caitlin's interpretation of what happened encouraged her to feel disrespected.
Yeah.
From what we know, Blake did not do anything to disrespect her.
No.
At least from what we know. Okay, so back to the recap. So we get a voiceover. So now we're talking about Debbie and Derek. And Demi saying that she's a terrible person. And Derek is a wonderful life partner, but she can't stop thinking about the girl back home. And she says, yeah.
Okay.
Right?
We didn't... There's one part of Dylan...
What did we skip over?
Well, Dylan and Hannah's date, she addresses her indecision. Did we skip over that part?
What?
Well, Hannah on the date, I feel like we're jumping apart, because have you gotten to JPJ and Tayshia hanging out yet?
Yeah, that's where I am.
So right before that, so we did gloss over really quickly Dylan and Hannah's date. Hannah addresses her indecision. She acknowledges she's had a rocky time in the past, and it's been a rocky road with Dylan, and she's so happy with him. She apologizes for the hard stuff and the difficult things, and thanks him for being so amazing. So I think I wanted to touch on that because it shows so much more of the depth of their relationship that we haven't seen so far, and it shows emotional maturity from her to recognize and empathize that he has been struggling seeing her figure herself out, but she has figured herself out and ready to go for it. He says he's starting to fall in love with her. She says she's all in for him, which is like the half measure of that. But I just wanted to touch on that because it's a really, really nice moment that we haven't seen Dylan and Hannah get from the production in a while. So it was cool to see that they do their thing together. I just wanted to touch on that, and then we can go to Demi and Derek talking.
Totally. And Pius Athena, we totally get that you're not saying that Blake disrespected her.
Right.
What we just want to address is that you can be a single person and choose to sleep with a million people and still get respect.
Absolutely.
You can still expect and communicate the fact that you want respect. I think that that's all we were trying to
Absolutely.
get
I think
across.
it's just the showing up as yourself with full, like, this is who I am, this is what I want to do. That's what you have respect for, and that's what people will respect you. Just because you do something that other people may not like or have a different opinion on does not mean there's a lack of respect there. That's all. Thank you for having the conversation with us, though.
Yeah, no, seriously, we love this. So
See, talking.
Exactly.
So good.
That's all we want. This is all we want is this conversation.
All right.
So
we have so much to go through.
Yeah, so JPJ and Tayshia, he says, I feel completely incapacitated around her. He says that he feels foolish going after her and that he's starting to fall in love with Tayshia, which is like...
What?
Left field, but cool. Super glad.
Well, they get to know each other a little bit, and we get to find out more about his past. He was in this long-term relationship. They were supposed to get engaged, and he realized that wasn't the right time for him. And he's also aware that people on the show don't have a good idea of who he is because of the way that he is. He seems to be aware that his way of speaking and physical appearance give people a very certain impression of him. Similar to Tyler Cameron in the same way. People get a weird expectation around him, and yet there's so much more beneath the surface that we don't see. And John Paul Jones seems to be aware of that. So he's going kind of, I think, a little bit of the extra mile to connect with Tayshia, which is really, really cool.
So
I'm kind of into this relationship. I think it's cool.
Yes. Then we go to a commercial, and we can pretty much skip through a lot of this because we're going to talk about it in the second episode.
Yeah, this is a lot of warm-up for the second episode.
Yeah, so Hannah Brown comes, and I loved seeing her again. It was kind of unnecessary, but, like, I get why they did it.
Right, because they talked before, and Demi told Hannah about this girl.
So Hannah and Demi have a lovely conversation, and it essentially encourages Demi to go explain to Derek that she downplayed her relationship with Kristian. We find out her name.
Kristian with a K.
Yeah.
Not like the psycho macho dude earlier.
Correct. That she downplayed that, and Demi does go tell Derek, and Derek says, it's tough to hear you downplay things. It's hard to hear you're thinking about someone else as much as you are me. That when he first met her, that her smile said everything to him. And he says, it's okay to not know how you feel.
Yep.
I just want to keep showing you who I am, and you can decide if that's the person you want to be with. I'm not giving up on you now. The best thing I can do is be a reminder to her of why she's into me. and that's how the episode ends. And
It was so sweet.
I truly was like, kudos to Derek.
Yeah, he gets it.
He is... I liked Derek before. He was one of the only guys that have ever come through this franchise that I was like, oh, I could actually see myself being interested in someone like that compared to the typical person who goes on The Bachelor.
Yeah.
I think that he is so emotionally in tune, and the way that he has handled all of this with Demi proved that correct. His capacity for empathy while he is hurting is so powerful and profound. And what I mean by that is he's sitting there and he's upset and sad and hurt, and yet he is still able to provide empathy and compassion to Demi. And he's not blaming Demi. He's not saying, well, you need to decide. He is not doing what the other people are doing to Hannah. Right? So before we were talking about other people being uncomfortable. So saying, Hannah, you need to decide because I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Derek is doing the opposite of that, which is very healthy, and saying, you got to make your decision at some point, but I'm just going to keep being me.
Because you seem to like me.
Because I want you to figure out if you want to be with me.
Yeah.
And the best way to do that is for me to be me.
Yeah.
And that is mature. It's healthy. It allows Demi the space to actually figure this out, and just round of applause. Round of applause. The chat is blowing up about Derek for Bachelor. I am still Mike for Bachelor. However, if I have a second choice, it is 100% Derek.
Yeah.
So Mike or Derek would be beautiful.
Yep. So Chris Harrison comes onto the beach, pulls Demi aside. We end the episode, and we go back to people having a conversation around Derek and Demi. So we see...
Wait, can we take a in-between episode break really quick?
Yeah.
All right, so let's just stretch, friends. Ugh.
Yeah, one of these little peppermint things.
Oh, yeah, these are little peppermint balls, by the way. If you see us putting these in our mouths, they're little, like, droplets of peppermint, and they help us keep our airways clear and our mouth minty fresh.
So refreshing.
Just a reminder, if you're listening to this as a podcast, to subscribe, rate, and review on whatever platform you're on. And if you are here with us on YouTube, if you can give the video a thumbs up, it lets us know that you're here, that you like it, and it helps other people find it, which is really, really important. And leave comments, whether you're here live or leaving comments beneath this video as a recording. The engagement on the video is so, so, so important, and we're so grateful that you're here with us, whether you are live or recorded. It's really appreciated.
Same. Are you ready? Ready to do this thing?
I am ready.
All right. So this next part, so the second episode that we're starting to recap now, it is a great, to me, demonstration of what a life experience will do for you and your emotional maturity, as Derek demonstrates how a confident man navigates emotional and relationship issues with relative grace based around them. I'm very impressed with the way that he carries himself throughout this episode, and it starts with this, is that, so we see that Demi and Derek goes off, or Demi and Chris go off to talk about something mysterious, and we see Derek talking, and it's really interesting the way that he talks, because he's aware of how strong his feelings are for Demi, because he talks about her and he gets a little emotional about her also having feelings for someone else, and he starts to almost tear up a little bit, but then he's also laughing at himself for being so emotional about it. He's like, oh my God. There's that level of like mirth that he carries around himself with his feelings. He's like, I am so into this girl, and he's kind of laughing about it. At the same time, he's feeling so strongly for her. And it shows that he's, I think, really emotionally connected, but also is able to observe that and be like, dude, you're in this.
Yeah.
And this is like happening to you.
He even says, I'm feeling every feeling that I can feel. And he makes it very clear that this has nothing to do with the gender of the other person. And I really appreciated him continuing to say this, because for people watching who don't have as much experience with any LGBTQ relationships,
Mm-hmm.
I really was thrilled that this was repeated over and over again. That it doesn't matter if Demi is interested in it. It's the fact that has feelings for another human being. Period. Yeah. That's it. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. So really quickly in the chat, Brandon Mays brings up, what do you think about the whole Demi storyline being pre-planned thing? I don't think, if that's actually happened and production has somehow figured out how to plan this entire thing out, I don't know, it's like the best manipulation of television of all time. I don't think it is. I think this is a golden opportunity that fell in their lap based on casting.
Yeah.
Especially when Demi talks about how long this scared person, later in the episode, talks about how long this frightened person inside of her has been there. I think that she's been struggling with this for a long time. I think because our society paints women in her position in such a weird negative light, or a stereotypical light, or a it's only okay if light. And so I think that there's been a lot of resistance that Demi has felt and struggled with, and I would suspect this is a golden opportunity for the franchise to, albeit a little, ham-handed, bring forward an LGBTQ relationship into the franchise in some format. I don't think that we're going to get like a fluid Bachelor or Bachelorette series or whatever, but I think it's impressive. I don't think that it's pre-planned. I think that production has done almost a minimal amount of work in this. I think that it all has worked out.
Yeah, and is there, do I have criticism of how they brought in a same-gender relationship? Yes, absolutely. Do I have criticism over the fact that it was done in a way that if it had been heterosexual relationship, that they wouldn't have done it?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. And I'm also very aware that there's a giant portion of our country that watches this show that condemns people for being in same-sex relationships.
Yeah.
And anything to get a relationship of the same gender in front of a person like that's face is somehow better than it not happening.
Right.
So, yeah.
So here's what I find really interesting.
I have so many feelings about it.
Here's what's really interesting. So I see in the chat, a lot of people are thinking this is a production effort. So here's what I find very interesting, and I'm happy you mentioned that about a large portion of the viewers of the Bachelor franchise are not okay with people living their lives the way they'd like to.
It's not even the way they like to. It's living their lives the way that they are. It would be like me being like, I can't have red hair because people say that if I have red hair, that it's a sin. So now I have to go dye my hair to be something else.
Right.
That's literally how ingrained sexuality is. It is who you are. It is not a choice. It is who you are. It's being born with red hair and you telling me, no, being a redhead is a sin. Mm-hmm. And I would have to go dye my hair every day or whatever, dye it to be something that I'm not.
Right.
Sorry.
Where was I going? Oh, so Kristian is the woman's name. We find that out after this morning. Production couldn't miss. I don't buy it fully, the production manipulation of this. I think that they're obviously part of it. But here's what I did this morning. I looked up Kristian on Instagram, from Demi's Instagram, actually. And if you go back a year from today even, she is friends with, I forget her name, but she was the DJ
Aggro.
I didn't want to say her actual DJ name. DJ Aggro, whatever her name was.
She was the girl with the little...
Colton Season?
Yeah, Pomeranian.
Yeah, from Colton Season. So this woman and Demi knew each other from Colton Season, whatever DJ Aggro, both contestants. They all hang out afterwards. Kristian, Demi's girlfriend or partner, or whatever their dating situation is.
Now.
Because that's been vague up to this point of the show. They probably met when they were all hanging out, and Kristian is an ordained minister. So there's a lot going on there.
She's also an associate producer and an improv actress.
Right. So what I'm saying is that if production planned this, then they probably,
Catherine,
created
thank
this.
you,
Thank
Lucy.
you. Oh my God, that was so... Whew. Okay, that was, bothering me a lot. Catherine. So I think that production messes with this show a lot. I don't think they're doing it here as much as we'd expect them to. I think that, like I said, I think this is an opportunity they didn't see coming. This woman is pretty amazing. Let's get that right. Being an ordained minister, and also, I believe from her Instagram, she identifies as gay. That is not a common thing. And especially going on television and getting all of the attention that she will get as a result of this, I think is pretty big. So I'm more tentative to actually trust the situation.
So here,
yeah,
I have so much to say. Do you ever experience the feeling where words and thoughts are coming into your brain faster than your mouth can move?
Most days, I do that. I do that most days. Like, I'll stumble up my words all the time because my brain is going so much faster than
I have, like, so much I want to say, and then I'll read a comment, and I'm like, wait, I want to respond to that!
Let's get back to the recap, though. So, because it'll paint a picture that we can get into.
So, plus, I know. I want to address something that is really important to address.
Okay.
So, we have gender identity, which is one thing, right? So, male, female, non-binary, trans... Okay, that's gender identity. Then we have sexuality, right? Gay, lesbian, bisexual, pansexual, demisexual, asexual. That's sexual identity.
And demisexual is not just being into Demi on the show. Just want to clarify
that's
that.
funny, yeah.
Just want to clarify that.
Means. So then third, we have relationship design. So relationships that are monogamous, relationships that are polyamorous, relationships that are open. These are all different things. So we have these three boxes. What I've been seeing in the comments around this show, because people are discussing it, are mixing these three things together. And I think it's incredibly important for me as a sex educator, and I do a lot of work in the LGBTQ community. I am in the LGBTQ community, and I think it's incredibly important to make this distinction. So Demi is 100%. A female who identifies as queer, who right now wants a monogamous relationship. Right? So that's important because there is a stereotype around bisexuality or people who identify as queer, that they are either never going to be in a monogamous relationship or that they need to be in a polyamorous relationship. Otherwise, they'll never be satisfied. Either way, both can be true. There are plenty of bisexual or queer people who are in monogamous relationships and in open or polyamorous relationships. So I wanted to just call that out there.
Totally.
Because a lot of the narrative was like, does she want to be with men or women? And it's like, no, she's deciding, do I want to be with Derek or Kristian? It has nothing to do with their gender in terms of deciding.
Right.
And I wish that Demi could know that polyamory is open to her, so that if she wanted to have both, and if they were okay with that, she could. That is something that many people do. Okay. That's my rant. I'm done.
It was good. I appreciate that. And it's a good distinction to make. I think that it's really, really important. And so Lucy in the comments said she's surprised that I'm not believing the conspiracy theories, which
you know him really well, Lucy.
Okay, so I agree that people in Bachelor Nation knew that Demi was with Kristina, or Kristian, early. Not Kristina, Kristian. I think that people knew that they were together. I think production was trying to figure out a way of bringing it in. That's why right away Demi was like, I've been seeing this person. I'm also going here to figure myself out. I think all of that was true. I think the production was waiting to find a way to bring Kristian in.
100%.
I also think that they are way faster on their feet and way less planned out than we think. I think that the production probably moves quickly within a week or two rather than having 3 months of something planned out. Like, that gives too much space for things to go wrong. Whereas they can react in the moment, and Kristian's if she knows that, hey, between this day and this day, just have a bag packed for paradise just in case, because we might bring you out for this. I think that's what was going on, based on what Demi was doing in the show. And so when Mexico calls LA and they're like, hey, Demi's ready for Kristian to come in, let's see how we can do this. I think that's when it went forward. I think that a lot of people knew there was a relationship and knew that Demi was going there to figure it out and that production was going to bring her in some way, shape, or form. But in fact, they show us that in the trailer. So, like, it's not that much manipulation.
Right. So,
like
but
that. I don't know.
Here's the thing. I think that Demi was honest about, I was seeing somebody, I am kind of seeing somebody, I need to figure this out.
Right.
And she told them that, like, right away. Okay, let's just keep recapping.
All right, so here's what happened. So Chris talks to Demi. I really like Chris's shirt. My only comment
Chris
on
Harrison?
that conversation. Yeah, Chris Harrison's
It's
wearing
a really,
really
sweet conversation. He's like, I love you. Like, we've
so,
got you. Now, I will say, when he does bring Kristian in, and he's like, our main focus is for you to find love. And we were like, and have really good ratings.
Yeah.
Like,
he's
Chris,
like,
you're an executive producer on the show. You cannot
the only
say
reason-
that your sole focus is this.
the only reason we're here is that we want you guys to find love. And I'm like, and put some fucking zeros in your bank account. Come on, Chris. Like, let's be real about why you're doing this. Anyway, but they share a really nice thing. Demi talks about how she can't imagine Kristian not being in her life. And Chris asks her, can you say the same about Derek? And she
can't.
She can't. So here's what I really, really like. Chris and Derek are talking. Chris on the show, the contestant Chris.
Then Chris Bukowski.
Chris Bukowski, thank you. I always forget his last name. Which is funny because Bukowski is one of my favorite writers, but I can't like connect the two.
It's no, okay, pause for a second.
What?
The first time you ever told me about the author, Bukowski, that's when I was like, wait, like Chris Bukowski from The Bachelor? And at that point you didn't know who he was because he was on his like retirement of reality TV and you were like, who the fuck is that?
Charles Bukowski, the nightmare writer who's just something else.
Yeah,
anyway.
Yes. Not like Jed.
Yeah.
What Demi
no, this is not Jed.
No. And fuck that guy. We're not going to even talk about him.
Well,
okay.
Anymore.
Go ahead.
Just that one thing.
Right.
So Chris Bukowski, thank you, and Derek are talking. And Derek he's feeling it, you know? He sees Demi go off with Chris Harrison. He doesn't know what that means. He starts questioning himself. Am I always reaching out of my league? Am I, like, not good enough? And Chris is, like, right there for him. He's comforting him. And the thing that I love so much, I wrote this down. So Derek sits back and he's like, you know what? I know I feel this way. And he's like, but she has to be going through so much more. And
again, the capacity for empathy while hurting. I'm like,
I wrote down.
Derek.
So I wrote down, this is emotional maturity. There are so many people commenting this season around how Derek's the real man we need to see. Derek's a real man, blah, blah, blah. He's also fucking 32 years old, not 24. There is a massive thing. Yeah, well, obviously, yes. But it's the connotation that's being used. Like, this is what a man is. I don't like when people use that because it's up to the individual's determination around what that means. I don't like any one person being the guide for others to live up to.
Okay, but hold on. Can you agree that living up to emotional capacity is a better version of being a quote-unquote man than being physically aggressive?
Yes. So, yes. I would say that term, the way it's used in that way, is misused more than it is used properly. I would say that the way Derek handles himself in this is what an emotionally mature man looks like.
Or an emotionally mature human.
Okay, yes.
Right? Like,
yes. So I think that the difference between being 24 and 32 in this case has really, there's a huge difference here. And you see people like Blake getting kind of shunned for being the age that, like, he acts a little differently. He hasn't gone through much life experience as Derek has. There's a reason why you see someone like him at 32 acting the way that he does and not like other people you've seen on the franchise before. And I think it's very refreshing. And I wish that we would have more people like Derek on.
Agreed, 100%.
We get to hear Demi worrying about leading Derek on by accident.
Again, she's so aware. She doesn't want to hurt anybody. Okay.
This is when I noticed she has a different body posture. Demi. She carries her. It's very interesting. Demi has changed visually so much from how she was on Colton's season. The way, like, the jewelry she's wearing, the way she carries her body, it's very interesting. It's almost like the true person she is now coming out more and more.
It's really wonderful.
It is.
So I realize that we're at about an hour 20, so we will do our best to get through the rest of this with respect to your time.
4 hours of content.
I know. This is when we start getting into the Blake, Caitlin, Kristina situation.
Oh, yeah.
And Caitlin wants to explore things more with Blake after their date, and Kristina wants Blake's rose, which she says is a friendship rose. Regardless, she wants it.
Yep.
And Caitlin says, I really don't understand why Blake is giving her the time of day. I just think he's too nice. I gotta agree with Caitlin on this one.
Yeah.
I don't understand that after how Kristina treated Blake when she first came into Paradise, why Blake is so open to having conversations with her and telling her about his feelings.
I think Blake is also... I think that Caitlin hit the nail on the head. Blake is too nice.
Oh, Janine, thanks. Janine says, keep talking. I can't get enough.
Oh, yeah. And Kittyville in the chat says, she's hoping she didn't miss or just got on here. I missed most of this.
Yeah, sorry, we went early.
I don't know. You missed like half of it. Let's be honest here. We're going to try to keep going quickly, but you didn't miss, you missed some, but not all.
Yeah, she seems super bitter, super resentful.
Well, right. So I caught this. We were talking about it this morning, actually. Kristina goes up to the bar, and she's like, hey, everyone shots. And everyone's like, yeah, we can do some shots. Everyone's holding shot glasses, and she's like, hey, Blake, let's get out of here. I think she did it as a distraction.
She's incredibly... okay, let me phrase this carefully. On this season of Bachelor in Paradise, from what I can see, she is behaving in a very manipulative and contrived manner.
Yeah.
How's that for a sound bite?
Sounded great. Honestly, Kristina pulls Blake aside to talk to her about Caitlin and the rose, obviously. It's mostly about the rose. But she does a lot of things that I remember hearing about from, like, How I Met Your Mother, like, pickup culture, where she mispronounces Caitlin's name. She knows what her name is. And she, like, downplays her a whole bunch. Like, she's okay if you...
Like, but you deserve happiness.
You deserve happiness. So she's clearly trying to poison the well with Caitlin. She's trying to get out ahead of Blake's feelings for Caitlin to make sure that she secures a rose, or that Blake gives her the rose that she thinks she's owed, I think, is kind of what's going on here. And so this is what I find so strange about this episode. Caitlin, of all people, is comforting Caitlin.
By the way, are they twins?
Yeah, they look very similar.
They are like...
They look very similar. It was weird. We even went back this morning and we're looking at her like...
They're standing next to each other and I was like, is this the Parent Trap? No, like, seriously. Like, they could remake the Parent Trap with one of them if they just changed their hair.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, that was odd. So, it was so interesting that Caitlin, who has been, like, the ringleader of, like, Blake shit talk, is now comforting Caitlin because Kristina... I feel like I'm fucking high school. Kristina is trying to torpedo the possibility of a relationship between Caitlin and Blake. It's just so weird to see Caitlin taking time to support Blake's love interest this point.
Caitlin even acknowledges... She even acknowledges that Kristina will get in the middle. So does Tayshia. That right. Kristina will get in the middle of his relationships. And I'm like...
Who are you?
What?
You were talking shit 2 days ago about this whole thing.
So this gets into then... Caitlin decides to talk to Kristina, which I thought was a very mature, respectful, wonderful thing to do. She wants to understand what's going on.
Well, but Clay and Blake have a great little interaction.
As she pulls her away.
Yeah, so Caitlin goes to talk to Kristina, and Clay goes, well, what's happening? Blake turns around and goes, the fuck if I know.
It was great.
It was exactly what I needed to hear from him, because he doesn't want to be involved in any more drama. He sees that, and he's like, oh, really?
And Caitlin, I will say that this was almost a textbook conversation in effective, healthy communication on Caitlin's side of this conversation.
Caitlin did a great job here.
So Caitlin grabs Kristina. She says she wants to talk because she's heard a lot of things, but she's wondering what her motive is. Kristina immediately gets defensive and says, there doesn't have to be a motive. Am I not allowed to talk to my friends and see where they stand?
which is not what she was doing, by the way. What she was just doing was trying to downplay Caitlin to Blake.
Right.
To get a rose.
Then, Caitlin acknowledges her defensiveness immediately. Immediately. She says, "You're getting defensive here, and I'm not." And then Kristina interrupts her.
By being defensive.
And is like, do you want me to go tell Blake to give you his rose? Is that what you're asking for? And Kristina then says that her actions, like her own actions, are none of Caitlin's business. And Caitlin says, they're everybody's business because you're literally chasing friendship roses instead of letting people find authentic relationships. And I'm really, really interested in your friend. This was brilliant. This was so well communicated. I was like, holy shit, Caitlin. Like, how she was portrayed on Colton's season as being like this quiet person. Like, we barely heard her speak.
Mm-hmm.
And she is probably one of the more articulate people. So
that's probably why we didn't.
Then Caitlin says, you're difficult to talk to because you get very heated, which is true. And Kristina responds with, I'm sorry my tone isn't good enough for you to stay calm. What?
So
what
we're seeing here is one person using healthy communication. Yeah, I love Janine's comment, talking about having the Bachelor contestants who don't do well or don't find relationships come talk to us and they can learn about. I'm very much okay with that. Let ABC know.
That is hilarious. Janine, let's do that.
Yeah,
that'd be amazing.
Tweet that at ABC.
Yeah, tweet it at The Bachelor.
At The Bachelor Nation. So Caitlin is using proper communication skills. She is reflecting what she hears. She is representing herself. She is not being antagonistic. She's not being aggressive. She is not name-calling. She is not saying, you do this, you do this.
Nope.
Kristina is just attacking her and being defensive and lashing out.
I mean...
And then the whole, I'm sorry my tone's not good enough for you not to be upset. That's like... It just shows exactly where Kristina's at.
100%.
She is aggressive to other women in this case. She feels entitled to stay on the show. She clearly is not out for Blake's best interests, yet is leading with that, while also preventing what she says she wants for him from happening.
So Caitlin says, I had no intentions of you getting heated. I just wanted to get to know you and see what's going on here. Kristina lashes back at her, and then Caitlin is like, you know what? I need to remove myself from this conversation. And she says, you should respect women. Women should always respect women. Now, if you guys know me, if y'all know me, you know that I don't like extremes. So the word always and never, I don't like to use. It's a rule when we work with couples that they are not allowed to use these words. I also don't like the word should. So always, never, and should are words that typically we don't use in our language around this apartment and around our work and everything. However,
and like life in general.
I understand what Caitlin was saying when she said women should always respect women, because Kristina was coming at her as though Caitlin had done something to her, and all she was doing was trying to understand what was going on.
Yep.
Caitlin did not come across at all in a judgmental way, in an attacking way. She asked her a question, and Kristina responded with defensiveness. So Kristina then is in the moment. She's like, I don't know if she probably just feels threatened by me. And I'm like, no, she does not feel threatened by you. She wants to understand.
Yeah, so the chat, I mean, yes, Janine, if that happens, we'll get you a producer credit. And we would love to talk to Nick Vial on this podcast. So if you guys have it here on this YouTube show, if you want to let him know about that. And Brandon May says, I like Kristina. Up to that conversation, completely changed my mind. Yeah, I was a little tentative on her before based on some other stuff, but...
Well, Kyle hadn't seen previous seasons of her.
I saw her, you showed me some recaps of her, like, was it Dean? A couple of seasons back of Bachelor in Paradise? I think I was watching, but only like a few clips here and there.
Yeah.
I was tentative on her going into that, and after the conversation, she really showed her hand of cards, so to speak. And what I find really funny is that in the moment later, Kristina calls Caitlin immature, which for me is confusing because Caitlin is being assertive and direct in her communication, and Kristina was the one being immature. And then I wrote something projection.
Totally. So that was awful. And again, Kaylin is consoling Caitlin.
So confusing.
Who ends up getting a bit teary, which I understand. As somebody who feels things pretty deeply, if somebody talked to me in the tone that Kristina did, I would also tear up just out of like sensitivity, even if I knew that I hadn't done anything and that she wasn't like upset with me. Just that tone being tossed, I would have teared up as well.
Totally.
And I thought that this was such a human moment. She's like, what the fuck? I went in to like clarify things and ask her questions, and she just like
went off
bitched
on me.
out. Like, what is this?
Yeah, the tone that Kristina was using in that moment was pretty aggressive and antagonistic at the same time.
Yeah, it was not good.
No, it was inciting a confrontation in which Caitlin would not play to and walked away, which is why, she was so frustrated when Caitlin got up, because she can't then keep attacking her.
So Lucy in the chat says, do you guys think Kristina has feelings for Blake? I don't understand any of her actions otherwise. I don't think that Kristina knows how she feels. I personally think that she is still upset about how, quote-unquote, weak she came off during her season of Paradise, where she, quote-unquote, allowed Dean to kind of dick her around. And I think that she is overcorrecting for that. So she, instead of going from passive to assertive communication, she went from passive to aggressive.
Yeah.
And so she's, in my opinion, she's trying to overcorrect for that. I don't think that she knows how she feels. I think that she is there with one purpose and one purpose only, is to make sure that Blake does not have a good time. And if she happens to find somebody else in the process, great.
Yeah.
That's my take on it.
Even the second one. I think that she is there solely to make herself look good and Blake bad.
Which is like the opposite of what's happening.
Okay, I mean, obviously we see that.
No. I'm just saying.
You can't read the label from inside the bottle. So we get to a commercial. This is really... So we get a very interesting conversation between humans. And this next part of the show really demonstrates the value of healthy communication skills, because Katie and Chris have a very odd conversation. It doesn't go the way that Katie wants it to, and it's very...
But right before that, we get this hilarious montage of Clay working out and Nicole getting served fish tacos and like watching him. She's like, "Hi, babe." It went on for a really long time, but honestly, after the conversation with the two women, I was like, this is a nice 2 minutes of levity. Like, I don't need to take notes. I'm just kind of watching. Yeah. This is silly.
And you know what? Kudos to Clay for keeping up his fitness regimen while on vacation. I probably wouldn't do that. Like, dude's working out nonstop. I would not be in that situation. It's just good for him. I know the other guys are exercising and all that, but like, dude really takes it seriously, and I appreciate that. Good
okay. Sorry. Now go ahead.
Cool.
And Katie.
Chris and Katie, ominous music. Katie's talking about how there are definitely going to be women coming in next because the guys have the roses and they always bring in the other gender when the one whatever has roses. And she says, like, are you worried? And he says no, and she says, I want you to do what you want. I want you to do what you want when whatever happens. And he says, yeah, like, do what I want? Is that what you're saying? And she says, I want you to do what makes you happy. And he seems kind of thrown off by that. Like, all of a sudden their body language changes. He's still kind of there, but she's very, like, closed off, like, kind of, leaning back and withdrawn and not facing him directly. which is really odd because they've been pretty close together, and we get a cut to in the moment where Chris is talking about how he's bummed that Katie isn't as serious as he is with their relationship, that she's suggesting to him that he can go on other dates, which is not what Katie was saying.
But that was the interpretation.
Katie did not actually say what she was feeling in that moment. Chris was looking for her to establish and reinforce their foundation. When she brought up other women coming in, he was like, "So what? Like, what's up with that?" And she's like, "Well, you can do whatever you want." And it looked to me in that moment he was trying to reach out for connection.
Yep.
And she actually pushed him away in that moment. As we find later on, that's not what she wanted to do, and she's very upset about that. But that goes to show the power of communication when it's not as direct and healthy as it could be. Had she been more direct around what her feelings were for Chris and not what she wanted his actions to be, because obviously she wants him to do what he wants to do, right? You wouldn't want someone that you're dating to not do what they want to do, because that's control and weird, right? But instead, she didn't phrase it the way that it would have come off as best as possible, and you see now the repercussions of it. He's doubting their relationship because she didn't make it clear what she wanted from it.
So she could have said, that was very well stated.
Thank you.
She could have said, "I'm not interested in controlling you. I would very much like it if you didn't go on a date with somebody else because I really like what we have going here. Yeah. And obviously, you can make your own decisions." But all she said was, "You're your own man. You can go."
Yeah.
And so he took that as, well, we're not on the same page. And he has been overtly clear that he is looking for a long-term relationship.
Yeah.
And it almost is like instantaneous. You can see in Katie's consciousness, she's like, fuck. I just fucked up. And it's from that point on that it kind of spirals out of control. She does an incredible job of keeping it together and taking personal responsibility for what she said.
Yep.
I wanted to dive into my TV and facilitate a conversation between the two of them.
Yeah.
Because this situation happens all the time in many relationships, whether they start off as committed or not. They were both looking for the other one to say, "No, I really like you," but sometimes we as people need to be the first ones to say that.
Right. So it all comes down to personal responsibility. And the chat is something really, really cool. So Janine talks about, he wasn't very clear either with what he wanted. We didn't see that. From what we saw, it was Katie being the one to be like, well, women are coming. He's like, well, how do you feel about that? And she says, you're your own man. Do whatever you want.
She doesn't say anything about them.
Right. She doesn't address the relationship. So yes, Chris could have said something. But I think for him, if I'm going to put myself in his sandals, because they're on the beach. You weren't ready for that, were you? If I'm going to put myself in his flip-flops for a second, the person that you're forming feelings with, you're establishing a relationship with, is now referencing other people coming, and is not reinforcing what you have. Yes, I think that he could have said something. Vivian De La Cruz says in the chat, I think she also secretly wanted Chris to say, no, I'm really interested in you. I agree. 100%. I think that she, as she goes to say later on, she self-sabotages a lot.
Because she's afraid of getting hurt.
So she diagnoses exactly what she did in the situation. And that's taking personal responsibility. So while Chris could have done something more, I also completely think that he is on track for what his experience is.
Yeah, I agree.
Could he have done more? Yes.
Yeah.
Did he need to? No. He's responding to what she said.
Right. She was the one that said the first comment, which is what threw him off. And then that comment threw him off to the point where then it would have been even more vulnerable for him to say, well, I don't want to see other girls. I just want to be with you.
Yes.
Because she had already put it out there that, it was okay.
Right. And you see that actually come out of him later on. So what happens is this woman, Jen, comes down from Ben Higgins' season. What season? Jen?
Saviano?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Jen's yeah, I think it's Ben's season. She comes down.
It's not Ben Flanick, so it's it's Ben Higgins. I forgot that she was even from that season.
She's apparently well known in Bachelor world. She's very pretty.
She's gorgeous.
She's 29. I don't know anything else about her.
Dean says that she's one of the most beautiful women on Earth.
So Caitlin takes a moment to be annoyed that Blake was talking to her when everyone was single. Okay, like, I don't know why you keep getting so fucking hung up on nothing. You're single. Oh no, a single person is being single.
Brandon says that they should set the two of us up in a booth on the beach.
Brandon, I would do that in a heartbeat.
I would
spend my summers on that terrible. It's not a great resort. There's no doors. I would need a place with a door and air conditioning
if we can sleep
netting.
at Vedanta or Vidanta,
Vedanta,
whatever the resort is where they go for the dates.
Yeah.
If I can sleep there, I'd sit out on the beach all day in like a Charlie Brown Lucy booth, like help 5 cents. They don't even have to put in 5 cents. I'll just be there.
As long as they credit us, it's fine. I'll take whatever. Anyway, so Jen talks to people on the beach. It's not really important. Dean does the same thing he did before when he teases Caitlin. The funny thing is that she is going down the rabbit hole all on her own. She's like, of course she's going to go out with her. She's beautiful. I am nothing. And like just super hard on herself, super annoyed at Dean all of a sudden for no reason. Then Dean messes with her, and she's like, oh, yeah, I'm being silly
She's
again.
like, I've been waiting for his true colors to come out. I'm like, girlfriend, have some faith in this for like a second.
God, if I was Dean watching this back, I would be like, can you chill for like a second without me around? Like, I don't know why you're... So, you see Chris talks to Jen, and he's uncomfortable, really.
He is uncomfortable.
This is him being in his head after what Katie said, because she told him, do this, and he's like, okay, I guess, like, this woman's really beautiful, and you're not really seeming to be into me now, so I don't know what to do.
Oh, this is so hard.
On the beach, he tells Jen about Katie, but now he's not really sure about them, and Jen asks him on the date, and he says yes, because this is exactly what Katie told him to do, and he's uncertain about it, and it comes off with how uncomfortable he is talking. He stumbles over. He's usually very articulate and very direct, and he's like, I don't know. I guess I have, but you and dates, okay.
It's so awkward.
Very awkward.
They go on a date, and he gets seasick, which I will tell you, we went on a catamaran when we were in Hawaii last summer, and I also felt seasick, so I had so much empathy for Chris.
Okay, I don't know why they do boat dates in general. They're not easy to contain, and therefore a lot of things can go wrong, which really offsets the dating potential on the boat. So Chris says something really cool. He's clearly bummed that, Katie pushed him kind of away at that point, but as soon as he agrees to go on the date with Jen, he goes and tells Katie. He's like, I'm going to go tell her.
Vivian's got
and that, I like the 2 cents joke in the chat. Chris wants to talk to Katie first, right after he says yes to the date. And that, again, to me, is a level of maturity that is very welcome on the show.
Yep.
And it shows also, if Katie was looking for a sign that he still has feelings for her, that's it. Because he is showing the consideration for what they have together before doing the thing that she has unfortunately kind of pushed him towards. So I find that really, really cool.
And in the moment, he says that he really wanted to hear, like, I'll cut off your arm if you go out on a date with her. Like, he wanted to hear her say, no, I want to be with you. Please don't go on the date.
Right. And she's in her own in the moment saying, I told them to go on other dates, but now I don't want him to go on other dates. Yep. Like, she's aware that she has pushed him away, that she has created the problem in the situation for herself. And I find her emotional awareness very cool and also kind of funny, because she'll, like, put her foot in it and then also realize that she's the one who's responsible for putting her foot in it in the first place.
And when they get back and Katie and Chris talk, they have a good conversation, but the seed of doubt that was planted has started growing roots. And this comes back to actually a comment in the chat. Lucy, after she says, I hated when Chris, after the date, said that he can't trust what she's saying to him now. She's been crying about this all day, you doofus. But, and so in that conversation, like, the seed of doubt has grown roots. He is now doubting it. And Chris is having a hard time now believing Katie. And I get it. Like, I get it. So then it's a commercial. We come back, and it's the morning, And Katie and Blake are talking about how they both came on Paradise hoping America would get to see their fun sides.
Oh, yeah.
And then they start laughing about how, like, it hasn't been that way at all.
Blake's like, no one's seen my fun side. This isn't fun for me. I also, Chris threw up on the boat. That's one thing I wanted to add.
Yeah, we talked about that already.
Okay, good. I just wanted to do. We get to Blake and Katie kind of diagnose. They talk about each couple. They talk about different things.
We get, like, the narrative. And then the
Right.
rest of the episode is the Derek, Demi, Kristian stuff.
Yeah.
Which we talked a lot about already.
Yeah.
But essentially, so we'll wrap this. And if you guys have any specific questions or anything, please feel free to put them in the chat. Whether you're here live or watching the recording of this. So,
right.
Essentially, Chris Harrison comes and pulls Demi out, tells her to walk upstairs. Kristian is there.
Mm-hmm.
Then in an ITM, Derek says that he feels like he's in purgatory.
Aww,
And Kristian, then we cut back to Demi and Kristian. Kristian says that having her go on the show has been really hard, that she's never been in a relationship like this before, but that she wanted her to be able to do her. And Demi tells Kristian about Derek.
Yeah.
Demi says, please don't be angry. Kristian says, I'm not angry. This is just hard for me to hear. Do you have feelings for him? Again, this is like fabulous communication.
Right.
Demi says, I've been very conflicted around all of it. I've been really fucking confused about it, and I have felt like a really fucked up person for it. And Demi then shares with Kristian that the second she saw her at the top of the stairs, she knew that it was her, and that she does want to be with her.
Well, and she's been, as much as she has formed a connection with Derek, and they have what they have, that Kristian has always been in the back of her mind, and it's been more and more and more. Then seeing her, she says, it's you, it's always been you, I want to be with you. And I think that she, as for the conversation that we had, it was very clear that Kristian was aware that Demi was going on the show to figure herself out, and that she was going to go on dates to do that. She did not expect her to actually forge a relationship or an emotional connection with anybody, and I think that's where Kristian is upset at all when you first see her, because, that's a lot to take in. All of this, for someone who is not a Bachelor franchise person, this has got to be, it's all I can think about is how this is for someone coming into. Absolutely. So I think that that's a huge part of Kristian's frustration almost, or standoffishness in the beginning. So
Kristian says that she's having a hard time imagining Demi having romantic moments with somebody else.
Yep.
And then Demi says, okay, I need to go have an honest and transparent conversation with Derek.
And she does, and it's so good. It's so good.
So this conversation, she tells him, essentially, I want to pursue things, and they're going to do that on the beach in front of his face. Which, this is the part of it where I'm like, do they need to do that? Like,
I don't know. Like, do other people get to, vie for Kristian now? I'm confused.
Right, so on one hand, I'm so happy that there's anything remotely not heterosexual being shown on the show.
Totally.
And then on the other hand, I'm like, this is kind of fucked up for Derek.
Yeah.
And if this was another man that she was with, I don't think they would have done this. So I don't like that there is inequality, even when it means that what I want to see is being prioritized.
Yeah.
And at the same time, again, like I said, I'm glad that we're getting shown any relationship of a non-heterosexual format.
Yeah.
So Derek is processing. He is so kind to her. He asks her what happened, if he did anything. Demi clarifies over and over again, he's the best guy in the world.
Yep.
She says, you're the best man on this beach, and that it's her heart.
He says, to go from kissing you to this, I just don't know how to feel. And that's...
He says that he wants to clarify he's not blaming her for anything. And that it's hard because almost every relationship he's been in, the other person picks somebody else over him and says that it's not him, it's their heart.
Buddy.
And in that moment, I was like...
I want to hug him. I just want to hug him. He says, if this makes you happy, then this is the right decision.
Yep.
So even in the bottom of his woes, his sadness, his heartbreak over this,
he
still knows
yeah.
that what she's doing is the best for her, and how could you say anything against that? I think it's such a respectable position to be in. I can't imagine how difficult that has to be to do that. Well, first of all, to do that in general. Secondly, to do it on national fucking television. That's hard.
Yeah.
No matter what way you shake it. And people are talking about, well, maybe he's considered for Bachelor now. Doesn't matter. He's not thinking about that right then. He is feeling all of this, and he does such a good job handling it. And
so he says, I just want to be enough someday.
Oh, that was hard.
I'm going to have to work through seeing her and processing you guys together. I would love to talk to her before we continue. Yep. Okay, so like at this point I thought he couldn't get any better emotionally. And then he tosses it out to want to talk to Kristian. And I'm like, holy shit, dude. Like, you are awesome. He wants to just make it, it's already an uncomfortable situation. And he wants to make it the least awkward for Demi. And he even says after the conversation, which was fine. They both acknowledge that it's hard, that they're both genuine. They both want what's best for Demi. It was a fine conversation.
Yeah.
He acknowledges after it, I don't think it helped me to meet Kristian, but I knew it would help Demi.
Yeah. Well, he's hurt. So meeting the person has got to be difficult in that moment. But when he talks to Kristian, they both agree, because Demi's there, they're like, this is weird, because it is. We're both here for whatever makes Demi the happiest, and this is what it is.
Yeah.
So that in that moment, that was, I think, Derek he's demonstrating to both Kristian and Demi, he's like, you two are you two. I'm bowing away from all of this. I just want to meet you before everyone else meets you, because the person that you care a lot about, I also care a lot about. And this is about you and I knowing that we're both respecting Demi the most.
Which is like the most
amazing.
Mature, incredible thing ever.
So
Derek comes back down to the group. They ask him what's going on, and he goes, well, you'll see in a minute.
Best thing. It was just so funny. He's like, you'll see.
Yeah. And then Demi introduces Kristian to the group and informs them all that they're going to stay in paradise. And then Hannah G brings out...
She is so happy for them.
She is. It's really sweet.
Something
there was something there.
Hannah's happiness about that, I don't know exactly what it is, but there's something deeper underlying. And I'm not trying to allude that Hannah has confusion over her own sexuality.
No.
What I'm saying is I think that the amount of respect, authenticity, and like emotional connection that she sees there is what makes her so happy, I think.
Yeah,
it was really cool to see.
And she brings them a date card. And so Demi and Kristian are going to go on a date. And Derek is, again, unbelievable, tells Demi she looks beautiful, to have an amazing time.
It was a good jumpsuit.
And Kristian and Demi essentially talk through things on the date. Demi talks about how she has been really afraid of commitment and getting hurt, but that she realizes that if she wants to have a relationship with Kristian, that she is going to need to do that. And they use emotions to describe their feelings, not thoughts.
It's great.
It was a wonderful conversation.
Tamara in the chat, really quickly, I was surprised at how much attachment Kristian had to Demi. Demi had described as casual dating. I don't think it was casual to Kristian at all. We agree. The thing is that Demi admitted she had downplayed their relationship to Derek and everyone. It was, I think, the episode 5, was when she admits that and had to go to Derek and be like, hey, so it's way more serious than I said. Sorry about not being that forthcoming.
Yeah.
So there was probably a lot more going on there. And we see that when Kristian, with a K, as it turns out, because that was confusing me too, and Demi are on the date, they share that they just want to be in a relationship. And Demi's had a hard time really committing because she's afraid of commitment.
Right. Also, somebody being afraid of commitment, and for her, it sounds like this is her first committed relationship with a woman, that she may have been physically intimate with other women or dated perhaps, but it is a big deal to not only come out as being queer or bi or however she wants to identify or however she does identify, and then to say, and now I'm in a committed relationship with a woman. That is an additional next step on top of that.
Right.
And it's scary. It's scary to do that. And what sucks is that our culture does that.
Yeah.
There's actually nothing scary about it. It's just as scary as committing to anybody else.
Right.
But because our culture makes us have to come out, why is it the assumption that we're heterosexual?
Right.
Why is it only that if you identify as L, G, B, or Q...
Is there a T in there?
No, because that's not...
LGBTQ,
that's
yeah,
gender.
That's right.
L, G, B, or Q, that you have to come out. Right? We're born into this world, just like we talked about, it's just as natural and in our DNA as my hair. I don't have to come out and say, like, hey guys, like, I have red hair.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Why is it the assumption that we're heterosexual until we're not?
I mean, I have a theory I can share with you quickly.
No,
as to
but
why that is.
I don't really care about how we got there. Like, obviously, I know our culture
Right.
was built on Christian roots, which is the why. What I don't understand is why we haven't moved past that.
Well, I think that we are. I think that change on this level, admitting that the way things have been done for millennia up to this point, is changing. It's a hard change, and I think that this is one of the first steps of many more to come around shifting the way that we think about everything in our culture, especially around sexuality and whatever, and love and dating and all the marital shit.
So then the preview for next week happens, and it turns out Emily Ferguson, one of the twins from Ben Higgins' season, is coming on, and Tajwan. And apparently it's a shit show.
Yeah, medics are called. Something goes crazy for John Paul Jones. There are many betrayals, apparently. Did we actually comment that Demi openly committed to Kristian, and then that they want to, like, she said, I commit to you, as someone who was, like, really afraid of commitment. She says she commits to Kristian. They are in a relationship moving forward from this point. I don't know how it's going to work in Paradise. I don't know if people can, like, now vie for Kristian or Demi. Very confusing. Chris Harrison is featured in the upcoming next week saying, like, we're rewriting the rules.
Which, like, obviously.
No shit, dude. So,
because if the women are giving the men roses, like, they set up a heteronormative show.
Right.
Right? So now they need to, like, rewrite things because... Whatever.
Guess what?
This
Society
is breaking ground.
Doesn't fit into that box no more.
And then in the like scene at the end, they're playing essentially heads up with cards, and Demi doesn't know who Nelson Mandela is, and she says, "I need to read an article about this Nelson guy."
Okay,
it was
so
very funny.
That to me, the Karate Kid thing. If you haven't seen Karate Kid, whatever. But Demi not knowing who Nelson Mandela is a failure of our education system because. Holy shit.
It was those.
And even Wells is like, you should know this. It's ended apartheid and like... Anyway, quite the episodes. My voice is tired. Thank you all for spending this 2 hours with us. It is almost 2 hours. We're going to figure out how they're going to do the rose ceremony next week. We're going to find out more about John Paul Jones. We're going to figure out why he yells at Derek in that foreword that we got in the very beginning of the season. Don't forget about that. Should be interesting.
We're excited. And just keep in touch with us in between the shows. We love chatting with you.
Yeah.
We're on Instagram. Our handles are beneath this video. We are at The Right Reasons or at The Right_Rachel, and he's at The Right_Kyle. Keep in touch. Share this video with other Bachelor Nation peeps. Share it in all the places.
All places.
We tried to go onto Reddit and introduce ourselves to say, like, hey, we're the hosts of Right Reasons.
We weren't allowed to...
But they deleted us.
To self-represent our account. I don't know. I'm going to email the moderator and just ask, what's the best way of showing up as ourselves? Because we like talking. We're not like selling anything in this fucking podcast, so who cares? It's not sponsorships.
Yeah, no.
Yet. Anyway.
Just wait, FabFitFun.
Okay, we will never sell that. Never. We don't want to use absolutes, but right now, never selling FabFitFun. But that hair bear stuff, I mean, we'll see.
We are not going to ever sell or shill. No diarrhea tea will be shilled on this podcast.
No, I don't.
Thank you all so much. We love you. Amanda, thank you for your kind words. Thank you all for being here.
And thank you for the conversation in the chat. It's always fun. And if you're listening to the podcast and you want to join us on YouTube or just send us some messages and shit.
Yeah. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Share it with your friends. Share it on the internet. The more it gets shared on the internet, you guys, the more Google puts it up in the search thing. So share this shiz.
The more Google puts it up in the search thing, that is exactly
official terms.
Official terms.
Bye, friends. We'll see you next week.
Bye, friends.